Alright, I am excited to bring to you my take on Etsy's Q4 for 2025 and overall 2025 results, and what was kind of discussed in the presentation to give you an idea what you need to be working on as an Etsy seller and as a product business owner who wants to sell on Etsy in 2026 and beyond. Now, I was actually really excited and really kind of bolstered by this update, and it was the most exciting one that I have heard in a while, because not least of which it was the first time in like 4 years that Etsy has not declined in gross merchandise sales, i.e. the revenue coming into the platform from our products that we are selling. So the first time in 4 years that did not decline. Now, they've said it grew, but I think it was like 0.01%. So I think that's a little bit cheeky. I would say that is flat year on year. And, basically they essentially are telling us that the last 4 years, every single quarter, we were seeing lower sales. So we were actually, the platform was making less money quarter versus quarter, year versus year, etc. But for the first time in Q4 2025, the platform actually made the same, if not more sales than the previous year, which is actually indicative of growth, right? We're going in the right direction. So that is really positive. And what was even more exciting to hear was the actual approach to the kind of changes in the way that Etsy is kind of planning to present itself going forward, and not least of which, because if you have been in my world for more than 5 minutes, you will already know most of this stuff. You will already be working towards building out a brand in the way that is now being recommended by Etsy as well, and so you are already well ahead of the trend. But I'm really excited to see that Etsy is finally catching up and working with us on this too. And then the third thing that was pretty exciting as well was the view that Q1 for 2026, they are predicting to see growth in revenue versus last year for the first time. So like actual growth, like a couple of percentage points versus just the kind of growth for Q4 that I would say is more flat. So all in all, a pretty exciting update, and I'm pretty excited to share with you my take on it. I have my notes as ever, so I'm going to read through them and I'm going to go through this presentation. I'm going to do it as quickly and as simply as possible. There's not a huge amount to really discuss, but I really do think it is going to be important for you to really understand where Etsy is going in 2026 and beyond. And what I love about this is, like I say, it is essentially what I've been teaching for years anyway. It is the way that I have helped to build multi-million-pound businesses and worked for multiple million-pound businesses in my career, and the way that most businesses work, and it feels like Etsy is finally catching up. So the big news was that Etsy is selling Depop, and so the investment and the kind of money that's going to come from that, the aim is to, obviously there's going to be spent on a lot of things, but ideally some of that money is going to be being spent on kind of marketing and promoting Etsy even more in 2026, which will be fantastic for us as sellers, getting more eyeballs on our platforms. And the big thing that Shristi actually mentioned was the kind of shift towards being making sure that Etsy is known as being something different, something special, and the differentiation and the way that you can deeply resonate with your customer. Essentially, that is what the priority is for Etsy for 2026 and beyond, which is what we have all wanted as heart-led, soul-centered, creative sellers who actually care about our customers. We really want to create something a little bit different. We're not just throwing up a load of PLR products and wanting to make fast cash overnight. That is not what Etsy has ever stood for, and it is not really what any sellers that I have worked with stand for either. And, we really want to bring something amazing to our market, and we want Etsy to continue to be known for that kind of special, extra special, exciting, different product that you can't just get on the high street. So it really does feel like that shift to focus on that is coming. A really interesting part of this was in a lot of the other updates that we've seen over the last couple of years, the focus was always on increasing conversion rate, right? Real e-commerce kind of strategies. So I, would recognize this from a mile off from my previous past in e-commerce, where they were kind of talking about the things they were working on, and I was like, this is going to be great for getting that initial conversion. So think about things like taking away distractions from the actual product page so that the customer just converts. But if you will remember, we then started to see that we couldn't really drive our customers easily back into our shop. It wasn't easy for people to find our customers to find our shops, to kind of go and look at what else we were selling, things like that. And whilst, yes, that will have increased conversion rates initially, because when somebody lands on a product page, we don't want to distract them, we want them to sell there and then, it really was detrimental to that longer term retention piece, that piece around making sure that customers knew that there was more for them from this shop, that making sure that customers knew that this brand was a heart-led human brand, that, a customer, there was a real person behind the screen creating this product for that customer. That was kind of the focus before. It was all about conversion rates. It was all about isolating the sale and making sure that the platform nailed the sale. And this shift in this update for 2026 really felt like they were moving back towards making sure they are, really focusing the creativity of the seller, the heart and soul of the seller at the forefront, and really making sure that we were tapping into that buyer appreciation for what makes Etsy special, right? And they also mentioned that remains high. That remains like a high point for a high touch point for customers who are coming to Etsy. They want that kind of that feeling, that resonant feeling of how special the products and the brand is, but they were saying that they need to help people find the right item for the particular buyer intent they've come to the platform for. Now, this is something I have been banging on for so long about. People don't come to Etsy to necessarily search for a solution to a problem, right? They don't necessarily already know what it is they're looking for. There is so many people coming to Etsy because, maybe they have got a gifting recipient in mind. So they have a husband who is a musician, but he doesn't like cheesy music stuff, and he doesn't like you would never just buy him like a statue of a guitar or something like that. I'm talking about my own husband in case you didn't already know this. But there is, people are often coming to Etsy with a really specific customer in mind that they want, a really specific person in mind that they want to buy a product for example, but they don't know what the solution is. They don't come to Etsy going, I want a guitar stand that is made from solid gold, right? They are thinking, I have this person I want to buy a gift for, and I don't necessarily know what to buy for them. And that is a huge part of the buyer intent process of purchasing products, right? Of coming to shop for a product. You're not necessarily coming to find the product that you are looking for. You are coming to be inspired and to figure out, you are coming to find the products you are looking for. You just don't necessarily know 100% what it is you are looking for yet when you land, especially on a website like Etsy. And so this is a big feature and a big focus going forward, that Etsy getting better at matching to the buyer intent and finding the right product for the right customer. And so what we need to be doing as sellers is making sure that we are being really clear on who our products are for. And I've been banging on about this for so long, designing your products around your customer, positioning your products for your customer, making sure your customer is at the forefront of every business decision you make, making sure that you know inherently who your customer is, who is buying from you. And that might be somebody buying a gift for that person as well. That is absolutely fine. But being able to describe who your products are for throughout your listing and really positioning your products for a very specific customer is going to make this so much easier going forward, because Etsy will then go, okay, this is what this person is looking for over here. They have got a gift recipient in mind for this product. This person is making products for that exact customer, match those products together, right? And buyer intent does cover a lot of things, so there are absolutely people coming to Etsy who know exactly what they want. So we need those keywords that are really specific to what our product is as well, but we just need to be focusing on and making sure we are promoting and making sure we are talking about all of those different things that our customer might potentially buy our product for. So thinking about the different search intents, the different buyer intents, and then weaving keywords and wording through our products to make sure that Etsy can pick up on that as well. So product positioning and understanding your customer, hugely important in 2026 and beyond. It always has been, but it's now going to be even more of a focus. So if you've been in my world for more than 5 minutes, you're probably already doing this. And if you haven't, please make sure you are really getting to grips with who your customer is, who you're selling your products to, who you think your products are perfect for, and making sure that you are describing the kind of that person in your products, making sure that your person can find your products based on who they are, and really considering that buyer intent, which means that people are often coming for different kind of products and things like that. And I'll probably do a separate video on buyer intent, because I think this is a big one that we need to properly understand, that I don't want to kind of go on about for too long here, because we've got a lot to go through. So another huge thing that was mentioned was the demographics of the Etsy seller are shifting. So basically the age base is getting older, and they have not been recruiting younger sellers, so younger buyers, should I say. So that is obviously a problem in itself. We don't ever want to stagnate a seller base, and we don't want an aging seller base to never get any younger and never recruit younger customers, because ultimately, that base then sadly thins out over time. And so a big focus is going to be on driving kind of acquisition of younger buyers and getting in front of younger buyers, especially on own channels like social media. And also that buyer intent piece, meeting people where they are in their buying journey. So giving people inspiration not only on their social media and channels like this, but also inspiration in the app on the homepage for products that maybe you don't realize you know yet, you don't realize you want yet, right? So helping people to better discover what Etsy is all about. So this is definitely going to lead to shifts in the way that people interact with the platform, so we're just going to have to keep an eye on any changes and things like that. But it's definitely something that is going to be more exciting longer term, and we need to start considering as well, if you have got an older customer potentially that your customer base is, can you start to think about how you can bring in a younger customer base to your products, if that makes sense, right? So especially this is a huge one in like the wedding space. Like I am seeing so many wedding sellers struggling right now, and it is because the wedding industry is shifting, right? Millennials are getting to become a smaller part of the getting married base, and Gen Z are starting to take over as a bigger proportion of that, and so many wedding sellers are so focused still on the millennial bride, who is thinning out. There is less and less of them, and they are not catering for this younger bride as well. So really considering if your demographic is getting younger or older as well, and whether you can start to bring in a younger demographic too, in line with how Etsy is going to start recruiting a younger demographic to the platform. What else was there that we talked about? We were talking about lower, so if you are in the Seller Society, we have done a big module on the marketing funnel this week. So you'll already know about your marketing funnel, how you bring people in at different parts of the buyer journey, whether people are kind of product aware, solution aware, whether they are warm or cold to your brand. We've done a huge amount of work on this recently, but essentially what this means is they have been focusing a lot on the lower funnel part of the journey. So people who are already product aware or solution aware, and they are, ready to buy a product. That is how Etsy works as a platform. Realistically, people come to Etsy to buy something, so they are ready and primed to buy something, whether they know what that is or not yet. And because they have been so focused on that, they've missed that top of funnel piece, which means that they haven't been funneling in enough people at the kind of discovery and kind of inspiration stages that maybe didn't necessarily know that they wanted to buy something, but could have come through that journey with the platform and ended up buying something, ultimately a little bit further down the line. And so a focus on their own channels this year is going to be moving into that kind of top of the funnel content and starting to bring people in who are maybe not necessarily ready to buy right now, but keeping them inspired, bringing them in through inspiration and through kind of content that's inspiring and tells people, what the Etsy platform is all about, and then nurtures them through a journey to buy as well. So I think this is a really positive in itself. Then frequency and retention is dwindling. So this is a little bit like what we said before. There's been that big focus on conversion and the frequency of people coming back and buying more often on Etsy, and also retaining customers and retaining loyal customers. That has been dwindling because Etsy hasn't focused on it, but there is going to be a shift on that. And they have actually re-anchored the marketing from the channel focus. So basically what they've done is they've restructured the department in the back end by the sounds of things. And instead of going, okay, we have a team for emails and a team for Instagram and a team for, social media, whatever it might be, they have moved to a customer focus instead, and looking at that overall customer journey, which is really cool and really interesting to me because that is what I used to do. I was a CRM manager, so I would manage the marketing comms across multiple channels and understand that customer journey. And so I will be paying attention to the comms going forward, because I would really love to see how they are going to put this into practice and how this is going to actually implement, better buyer journeys for our customers too. And I think that was the biggest thing. So then there was a little bit around ChatGPT orders, so the kind of AI and agentic search. So really kind of focusing on bringing in more traffic via agentic search, i.e. people who are searching and asking for, product recommendations, etc. within AI tools. This is, I believe, only available in the US right now, so it's not something I can test and play around with. But if you are in the US, give it a go. If you use ChatGPT, for example, then playing around with, asking for product recommendations and things like that, you can potentially check out there and then in the platform for an Etsy product. But one of the big things that I found quite interesting was the orders were driving higher average order value from agentic searches, and I think that is likely to be to do with the fact that, there is a little bit more of a trust and objection handling because, the customer who's using ChatGPT has built trust with the ChatGPT platform. For, whether that's right or wrong is not what is up for discussion here, but, that is what's kind of happening with these people who are then shopping via the app themselves. And so there's a kind of trust barrier broken down there, and there's probably a lot of objection handling broken down too, because the customer has gone to the AI tool and gone, this is exactly what I need, as in like, this is my problem, this is the problem I'm facing right now, as in the problem is what products I need to buy, or what products I need to buy a product for, what event I need to buy a product for, e.g. a birthday, a gift, for example. And so they are giving the problem to the bot, and the bot is then coming up with the solution based on maybe some back and forth conversation, and so the product is really, really relevant, i.e. the product that is then served to them, because they've gone, okay, you want a gift for this person, your budget is this, your person likes this and not that, your person is in this country, you want delivery to this country, you want free shipping, you need it to be under a certain price point, blah blah blah, and then it's really curated the exact right product at the end point there. So I think that is actually something that's quite cool and quite interesting about AI and about the way that shopping can work on AI. Obviously a lot more to come from that one, and they did mention that it is a tiny proportion of traffic and revenue right now, so I know a lot of people are getting quite loud about this as an option, and yes, it will start to grow, but I really do think that it is not something that is taking over from tomorrow. It's just going to be something that grows and gets kind of more accepted and more widely accepted over time. But in terms of what you need to do with your listing to make sure you are being found by your customers is exactly what I said at the start, right? Positioning your products for your dream customer, making your dream customer understands who this product is for, why it is for them, how it is perfect for them, what the product is, what the product is not, what kind of person buys this, what reasons people buy this, right? If you are selling colouring printables, for example, it might be for classrooms, it might be for parents, it might be for teachers, it might be for adult learning, it might be for, there might be a lot of different buyer intents for that one product, and we'd want to hit all of those things within the listing so that, it can be served up for any of those buyer intents. So that is the main thing. The one last thing that was really mentioned that I wanted to pull out was that in the results and the numbers section, there was a focus and a mention around how personalized, sentimental and milestone related products was the biggest driver of buyer engagement, i.e. buyer sales. So people were buying into personalized, sentimental and milestone products because that is what Etsy is known for, right? Etsy is known for something that you can get personalized that is a little bit different, that maybe is sentimental. And so if you are not already offering something in that space, you might want to start considering how your products can be personalized or, made more sentimental, or kind of to hit kind of certain customer milestones, etc., that your buyer is already searching for, because that could give you an edge versus people who are not doing that. So without further ado, I would just now scroll through this presentation and see if there's anything I missed. But basically we've kind of covered all of this here. So further amplifying human connection, they did talk about how they really want to continue to highlight the seller behind the product, because it is such an important part of this. And whilst a lot of the focus moved away from that over the years, I have not stopped banging on about this. People care about the person behind the business if you make it their business to care, and it's Etsy's time to make it their business to care. We talked about the results, we talked about the growth for the first time in years, we talked about, I don't know if I mentioned, but sellers have been on a slight increase year on year as well, so there is slightly more competition potentially than there has been previously, because sellers were dwindling, because a lot of people got removed from the platform, etc., for selling, unethical things, blah, blah, blah. And so potentially, whilst growth is going in the right direction, there's potentially going to be more competition, but that is totally normal, right? With growth comes competition, and with competition generally comes growth. The problem we've had over the last few years is the seller competition has risen and the growth was declining, and it's going to be been quite difficult. But this feels like quite a positive shift for Etsy, and this is why I'm always really pleased when people haven't given up over the harder years, right? Because it does pay off in the longer term. Customer metrics, so personalization across their own marketing, so really kind of getting better at personalizing content and comms for individual customers. Again, something I'm very interested in seeing more of, because I'm still not sure they're doing the most amazing job of this. I am subscribed to their emails. I don't get personalized emails, so it would be something interesting to see if this gets stronger. There was a lot around customer service and things like that. I think most people can agree that the customer service has got marginally better than it was a couple of years ago. The app is continuing to grow in both traffic and downloads and sales, and so making sure we are mobile optimized, as important as it has ever been. And there was also a mention of the home and decor items being a category being in growth as well, because people are starting to realise that is exactly what Etsy is here for. And this is quite a nice little section to have a look at as well. So the kind of things that are going to be doubled down on in 2026. So we've talked about a lot of this already, but just a couple of things to pull out. Scaling loyalty and rewards offerings will be interesting to see what they do with this. They did start to pilot the rewards program on Etsy, so potentially something they are going to do more of. Up-leveling the Etsy seller app, I would love to see it. I absolutely hated the new app when it came in. It's taken a while to get used to, but hopefully that is going to get better. They talked about how they are using more AI to help with speeding up our processes. So obviously they brought that into things like writing your titles for you. Still on the fence about whether or not these things are going to be helpful, but ideally they are, going to be getting better and getting stronger as well. And then highlighting sellers and their creation process in listings. I really, really, really can't wait to see how this one comes through, because as I have always banged on about, we want to bring ourselves into our listings. We want to show the customer who we are behind the scenes, and make sure they are understanding there is a real person behind the scenes, and all of the people in my world are already doing this. So I would love to see how Etsy is going to better highlight this as well. It's going to be fantastic. If they can do this properly, even things like enabling more meaningful buyer-seller interaction, again, something that I have been really, really kind of hammering in for so long now, like to build a connection with your customer, to reach out to your customers, to talk to your customers, to, don't just kind of only speak to them when you're asking them for reviews. You want to actually build a brand experience with these customers. And remember, from both sides, the customer side and the seller side, there is another person behind the screen, right? It's a human being behind the screen, and focusing on human connection is how we are all going to win. So they are the big takeouts. I haven't gone deep into like numbers and stats and all of these things. You can have a look at those yourselves, but the overall was that by the end of the year, by Q4, we were starting to see more positive growth, because all over the whole year we were seeing, sales were down quarter to quarter, and sales were down versus the last year in each quarter, but they were down slightly less each quarter. So we were kind of going into growth. We were going in the right direction because they weren't quite as bad as they had been. And then in Q4, we finally saw that flat or slightly in the positive, slightly in the growth numbers, depending on how you want to skew it. And so generally overall, it was a pretty positive call. I was pretty pleased with what came out of it. I don't see any enormous red flags. Obviously, we've got to keep an eye on things. I do believe there will continue to be shifts to things like search and the algorithm, and, how Etsy has kind of really pulled out that they are going to be massively focused on making sure that buyer intent matches are stronger. So i.e. we are going to be showing the right product to the right customer, which means that there is ultimately going to be changes to the way that customers shop on the site and the way that your products are shown in search to different people. But this is happening already, right? We know that each buyer is getting a personalized experience when they land on the site. So there is no such thing as ranking on page one anymore. We are focusing on positioning our products for our perfect customer. We are focusing on making sure our customer understands why this product is perfect for them. We are focusing on creating our listings in a way that our customer can find them based on their search intent, based on what they are coming to the platform for, based on who they are, what they need right now, and really just, again, making sure that our listings are of the highest quality they can be, so that they are designed to convert as well. All stuff that we are already covering, either if you're watching this in the Seller Society or on one of my channels. It's what I will be covering in my free content, what I have been covering in free content, and also what I cover inside my paid containers as well. For example, in the in the Seller Society, it's called now, where we really focus on all of this stuff as well. So really not anything, glaringly obvious, anything horrendously scary to change. Just what I think was quite a positive update, and I am excited to see what happens in 2026 and beyond. I would love to know what you think about this update, and I will drop all the links if you want to watch the presentation or, download the presentation slides yourself to check it all out. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye.